Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sean Carey from the Evolving Practice Podcast, and I'm with,
Dr. Bill Moss.
and we're so happy to join you again. It's been another week. We're happy to see you. And Dr. Bill's recovering from a trick or treat last night with his daughter Ava. So he's up us if we're a little bit tired.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's been a busy week for sure.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about something awesome. We're going to talk about spiritual initiation. It's something we've mentioned a lot on the podcast, especially in regards to our own journey. But initiation is something where it's a word that's not used very often. So we
Mhm.
want to really talk about what that means, especially in the context that we're using it, and to let people know what's actually available to them, because this is something that's actually an incredible, uh, I want to say, gift that people can have access to really heighten your spiritual connection, to really crank up your spiritual intuition, and it just opens so many doors of positivity.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. No, I think this is we've touched upon it, but this is almost like part 2 in the series. So last week we talked about life activation and the importance of that, and that's a helpful tool to help people progress towards initiation. And initiation, I like to preface it. There's a lot of initiations people kind of already almost can relate to, one being graduating high school, right? The idea of like initiation typically has this beginning and an ending, like all at the same time. Your
Yeah.
completion of grade school, and yet you have this new opportunity. And anybody that's stepping into spiritual initiation, there's a lot of concepts surrounding it that we kind of feel at the same time. I mean, most people can relate to like wrapping up school and how they felt inside about the known and the unknown that's coming. So, up to this point, we've described a lot of um, our own personal stories, but we're going to dive more deeply into what initiation and spiritual initiation is.
Yeah. I love what you just shared about it being basically like an ending and beginning at the same time.
Hmm.
If we think about like high school, for example, it's kind of like an ending of childhood, or in a certain
Yeah.
way, more of a stepping into maturity.
Hmm.
With initiation, what with spiritual initiation, what we're talking about is we're talking about a death of a way of living more ruled by the human ego, and a
Hmm.
stepping into a way of living more ruled by the spirit and
Yeah.
and the divine. And it's that's something that sounds kind of grandiose, but it's very real. And
Hmm.
it's not something that has to be so separate for us as human beings. We have this ability to live in much greater connection with spirit, and that's what initiation is all about. And it's not something that Dr. Bill and myself just came up with. This is something that's part of a
Yeah.
lineage that goes back many thousands of years.
Hmm.
And one of the things with initiation is that there are things that we can share through words. Initiation is always taught in person too.
Hmm.
Like, especially during COVID when everything was going on, so many people reached out and were like, I want to do this. Can I do it over Zoom? And we're like, no, sorry,
Yeah.
you simply can't. It's not one of those things that has to be done in person. It has to be done with somebody who has the spiritual authority to do this, to hold a specific initiation, to be able to initiate someone else.
Hmm.
And the modern mystery school lineage, this is somebody who's a certified spiritual guide. They have the tools, the training, the ability to do that for somebody.
Hmm.
What happens is we're opening up these higher doors of spirit that somebody is able to essentially walk through and live a life more governed by spirit, by angels, by their divine contracts, by their intuitions, instead of just the human mind and the ego.
Like that's a great summary of what it is for people. It sounds easy to get to, Sean.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to be it's funny. It's like to actually be ready for initiation. Like, people oftentimes or people not oftentimes, they do have to go through a process of what we call self initiation, where they
Yeah.
have to have had this moment of basically waking up, in a certain sense, like kind of reaching out to God or spirit or source and saying, there has to be more. Please help me.
Yeah.
Please show me.
Yeah.
Just basically a reaching out of the soul to
Yeah.
something that's higher.
Yeah. And I think that feels like, I've walked far enough away. I've had enough life. I've had enough hardship. I've seen what seems to be not of the light. And I need to look in a different direction for where it could be, and where I can find that wholeheartedness and deeper meaning within life. And I do feel like we talked about this on the last one, but for me, initiation, I didn't know what I was getting into. I don't even know if I knew what the hell I was going to receive on a mental level. I think on a deeper level, I was really looking. My soul and guides knew I was looking for this level of understanding, and after that, it's like the amount of meaning that showed up in my life um, was so grand and rewarding and challenging all at the same time, because it is kind of like, when you step into the world out of college and you're securing a job, and you it's in this field that you studied for and searched for. You have this like, oh my gosh, I landed this job and it's so exciting. And with initiation, there is a lot of excitement, and like, I'm
Yeah.
stepping into this new understanding of the self. And yet there's also this like, morning after the party type type of feeling of like, oh my gosh, well, that's all over, and now I'm different. And how am I going to navigate through that? And the one big difference, so I just want to share this, like, Lauren and I studied within the anthroposophic lens. We did some anthroposophic psychology training, and that's through Rudolf Steiner's work, who was known as an initiate within the lineage that we work. And they reference initiation a lot. And I asked a gentleman, "Are there initiations in this world?" And he was like, "No, initiations like when you decide or make a decision or this and that." But what Sean and I are talking about, there's an actual physical act that
Yeah.
helps somebody, you know, have these doors open. It's not just through the mind or this
Right.
mental aspect of like, now I'm choosing to be initiated. That's not what we're talking about. There's an actual physical act that brings about this spiritual transformation,
Yeah.
and is required for us to fully experience that, because it supersedes the mind. So much healing and development people want it to be mental,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And then that's a huge danger because if we allow it to be mental, the ego just rules the show. And
Mm,
it's a huge danger in spirituality, these different spiritual egos, because it
mhm,
really like you really have to have higher light, a light that's higher than the ego to come in, and typically that requires like humility, you know,
mhm,
to be able to actually like step forward and to do something like this,
mhm.
and humility, like, and also having an empty cup so that you can receive. But
Yes.
what you're saying is so important because it is, there is a specific process that we do, and for both of us, it was, like, years of training,
Mm,
to be able to really do this and then being monitored and, making sure we were doing it correctly, by
yeah.
people who have done it for many, many years. So it's just like really becoming a doctor, that
Yeah.
wasn't something that just happened one night. There was quite a process to go through that, and then internship and board exams and that type of thing. This
Mhm.
really is similar as far as level of, work that it takes to become a spiritual guide so that you can do the initiation for somebody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. And I mean, I've said it multiple times. I didn't go to that thinking like I want to do this for people, but
Yeah.
I absolutely think the process, and I respect the process so much of, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's true in so many, that's what another one of those cliche things that gets said, but there's so much truth to it. And I believe a lot of people extract that from spirituality. They're like, there is no responsibility, or this isn't that serious, or it doesn't matter, it doesn't hold power. And it's like, this work holds so much power that the reverence and the understanding and the individual that holds those keys to be able to do that,
Yeah.
they really do matter. And for me, that actually made it more important to me.
Yeah.
You know, like I said it before, but our training to do this work, there's only a handful of people in the entire world that can do this work. And it's so
Yeah.
profound. And you ask the people that have received it, and many of which you hear the stories, and they're just so profound. And we haven't really highlighted that on this show. We've talked to like people that have received it, and
Yeah.
many of our guests have received initiation, and they serve other people, and they found the tools to be super helpful. But the transformative power that's beyond expectation is what has led to so many other people, um, looking for this type of understanding of and experience of initiation.
Yeah, absolutely. And the process that we go through too to be able to do this, it's not simply a mental process by any means. Like
No.
becoming a doctor is very mental. It's primarily mental, like, 90-95%
Right.
academic. But this is not that way. It's maybe like 5% academic, and then the rest is basically you learning and applying and studying and developing your intuition and your spiritual senses while you're going through your own path and being taught many different higher trainings, so
Mm,
that you can basically hold a level of spiritual purity and spiritual light, and so that it can create that container so that somebody can receive initiation.
mm. Let's talk about why people would want to receive initiation. Like, why
Yeah.
does somebody end up looking for it? And then, why do people actually do it?
I think people they are looking for it because they kind of reach that they feel like there's something more.
Mhm,
Like something happens in your life, or there's a series of events that, like, there has to be something more. It
mhm,
can't just be this, like, day to day, day to day, day to day. Like there has to be more.
mm,
And oftentimes it's a place that we can there's certain things in life that you just can't, like, you can't fill the cup with success, you can't fill the cup with relationships. Like, you need spirit. Like, if
mm,
your life doesn't have that spiritual cup full, you're going to feel just something's missing, even if everything else on paper is going really well. And
mhm,
initiation is that thing that will, like, really fill your cup up with spirit, so
mm,
that it will help you to make amazing shifts to yourself too. Like,
mhm,
one thing that I was experiencing that led me to this too is, like, I was just kind of sick of feeling stuck with myself, like,
mm.
in a certain sense. Like, it was just like
Yeah.
I didn't know how to overcome certain things, and I was like, oh, I don't always like. I want to overcome uh, different aspects of how I was being or thinking or feeling, but I didn't really know how. And
Mhm,
it was like there has to be a better way.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think from the personal self, when looking back about what it immediately kind of gave me that I needed, that's the interesting thing with initiation. It oftentimes gives us these gifts that are our own. They're definitely our own, and we don't even know we need. And I know after initiation, I finally had the strength and power to like draw lines and not just be a chameleon and just continue to fit in the way I felt others needed me to fit in. And I got really good at that. And a lot of people do. They get really sharp. They have like sharp um or really functional skills to like
Yeah,
cope, right?
yeah,
With the sense of not being oneself. And afterwards, I had tools and this realization of like, I don't just want to go through life just bending the knee to every group and situation and kind of getting walked over in a way. And I got a lot of self power back that I
yeah,
had been looking for. And for me, each initiation that I've received has absolutely given me this greater level of self power that not in a way that's like, cruel or unharnessed, but in a way that like creates a boundary for um, the self to bring forward more of the individual nature of who I truly was. And for me, I didn't even know how badly I needed that until it was actually
yeah,
happening. And I think
yeah.
that's the feeling people get after initiation is like these things happen for you that you weren't even aware that you needed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the words you're using are so funny, because just to take a step back for a moment, when we do initiation, it's for somebody who's that you have to have done life activation beforehand.
Mhm,
That basically turns on different aspects of your spiritual DNA, and then you can do the initiation, which is part of a 2 day class called Empower Thyself,
mhm,
which is 2 days of learning basically ancient rituals to help master your energy, to help harmonize your energy, to work with angels, to let go of negative energy, to wake up your intuition, and just 2 amazing days of teaching as part of this. But the whole process, one of the things we say on this path, is about know thyself.
mhm.
So if we don't actually know ourselves, we will just end up basically showing the world the mass of our personality, which we've
Yeah.
developed over time. These faces that we put on in different settings, because over time we've learned it helps us have a certain response from people.
Mhm.
And we call the course "Empower Thyself," just like you were saying. Like I felt, I forget the words you were using, but it was like a certain self power, and that
Mhm.
really that is the goal. Because
Yeah.
when we first start working with clients, one of the ways that I view it is it's like people kind of come in, maybe they're depleted or maybe they're doing great, but it's kind of like us pouring light into them. We're
Mhm.
bringing light to them, not necessarily from ourselves, but we're helping anchor that down into their structure. But the world is a place with both positive and negative, and it can be a bit chaotic. And it's really important that people have these tools to be able to, on their own, create sacred space to bring in positivity and to let go of negativity
Yeah.
and to bring balance and healing. And initiation really teaches people how to do that. So it's something that on a daily basis, you're bringing light to yourself, you're bringing healing to yourself, you're letting go of negativity, and it's something that you have the tools and the energy and all the understandings to be able to do every day.
Mhm.
And it has huge power because one of the things initiation does, it expands your energetic capacity so that you can hold much more spiritual light. One
Yeah.
of the things that I like was on the brochure, when I took the class or the website was 10 times more spiritual light. And that was something that it was a trigger for me. I remember thinking that of like, how do they measure that? 10
Yeah.
times more light. But I remember after being initiated, I went and looked in the mirror and my eyes were brighter and I
Mhm.
felt brighter inside. I was like, oh, that's what they meant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard concept to even quantify, and it's funny because I always laugh. It's like just around the same time that experience that it's like everything's 10x, 10x your
Yeah.
finances, 10x your
Oh,
health, 10x your, and I'm like, oh, it's spiritual 10x, but it's like,
yeah.
there's the deeper understanding related to that.
Right.
But what that looks like is your progression speeds up, your lessons come quicker, your understanding of self becomes greater, and your understanding of the self in relationship to the world, when you understand more, you can do more.
Yes.
When you have greater awareness, you can make a lot more powerful, empowering decisions that are for your benefit. And that's definitely what happens for people. You see people who we all know them who every time we talk to them, they're reliving the same story in the same way. And it's like
Yeah.
with initiation, it's like you don't really that doesn't cut it so much anymore.
Yeah.
And that's also why it's really hard to get there. You mentioned the negative ego, but like I've never seen in any other work beyond this how the negative ego shows up. Like it doesn't stop people from getting chiropractic care. It doesn't stop them from um, maybe eating or changing their diet or doing this to the same degree and the
Yeah.
same extent as
Yeah.
when this idea is presented to them. And I've
Yeah.
never seen it. Like I just it's the most fascinating thing for me to watch to introduce this concept. Watch people go through their negative ego and when they finally step through the door of initiation, how that really shifts and changes and how many doors open for that person
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an important point because literally what it's doing, it's helping raise those connections beyond the negative ego.
Yeah.
And even hearing this, oftentimes what the negative ego will say is be like, "Oh, I've already done that. I'm already
Yeah.
initiated." And it's like really, unless you've gone through this process, you're not. But both Bill and I had done different spiritual work. Like I'd had a lot of study and practice with different things before this,
Mhm.
but it was something very, very new for me when I did the initiation that's done in the mystery school.
And I would also say, and I think this is a consistent thread with the many people I know, is there are a lot of people, especially in the world now, people want to be better, right? Like I
Yeah,
think there's a desire to know thyself. So there's like, I want to know more about myself. I want to learn more about myself in relationship to the world. And then we go for self-development and we go to seminars and we get pumped up full of energy. And then most people find themselves like deflate or go back to where they were within the week, within a 2 weeks, whatever the window it may be. And this was the first thing I did that didn't occur.
yeah,
It was like that I never just went back to the same.
yeah,
Um, like not even remotely close. It was like every week I got further away from the same. So it was
yeah,
actually the experience was completely the opposite of what I had experienced before. And for me, that was the most important because how many times did you go to seminars and people would talk about what they did or their transformation, or,
Yeah.
they kept coming and the answer to the thing was just keep coming, just keep
Yeah.
showing up. And
Yeah.
like that wasn't my experience with this. And that's why it was so impactful. I knew it was different just from that fact alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, the thing that caused us to actually, be here to progress further on this path and do it for others, it's like for both of us, it's not a financial thing. It was something that like it's much easier, quite frankly, to make money with chiropractic than it is it's spiritual work,
Yeah.
especially if you think about that energy and time that goes into it. Like
Yeah.
there's just like it's a very sacred thing. It's not about the money. It's about the seeing something that's helped
Mm,
your soul to become more alive and has helped your life shift into a better way. And like for me, it was this thing where it's like, oh, this truly helped me, and then really wanting to share it with others, and
yeah.
then over time, learn different tools to share with others, like the life activation, and seeing the results of that, and how are they really positive, and then that led to us both doing this. But
Mhm.
it's something that like I saw my parents transform, I saw you transform.
Yeah.
My brother like came back. He was essentially paranoid schizophrenic. This was what brought him back, and my only brother. It was just absolutely so many miracles that I saw with people who had an open enough cup to be able to do this.
Yeah. I don't know if I shared this story. I know I've shared this story with you, but I don't know if I shared it on the podcast. But there was a gentleman who ended up finding me in this roundabout way when I was out of the state. And he ended up living only like 3 miles from my house. And he contacted the Modern Mystery School initially, and he was from 3 miles from my house, and they redirected him to me, and it took me, like, about a year and a half, almost 2 years of loosely talking with him, doing some healing work for him to finally get him to initiation, and the week leading up to initiation, he looked really beat up. Like, he came in
Mm.
with a cane, and he had hurt his knee, and he just looked rough, kind of like an ex-biker look,
Yeah,
had some tattoos, and he just looked a little, like, disheveled when he showed up for the class, and he really even had a hard time getting there, and he knew the resistance, and he could acknowledge it, and he goes through this class, and there was, 3 other individuals in the class, so there was 4 total, and this was when I was doing my certification process, and through the course of that weekend, through being in the class, receiving the tools, and receiving the initiation, he was unrecognizable in his physical appearance afterwards, and every single person in that class came up to me at the end, and they didn't necessarily wanna talk just about their experience. They were like, "Did you see Marty?" Like, they were
mm,
like, "Did you see what happened to that guy during
yeah,
this time?" They're like, "He didn't need the cane. He, like, lit up. He looked, like, full of light and bright." And, like, on the way home, he's sending pictures of the sunset. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but here was the thing that was so powerful was I didn't ask them if they noticed. They asked me if I noticed
yeah,
what happened to him during that weekend.
yeah. It's just it really is. It's a life changing experience, and it is this anchoring of the divine
Mhm,
into your physical structure, helping you to live in a state where the spirit and soul are dominant, as
mm,
opposed to the human mind, as opposed to the negative ego, and it helps you to live much more in alignment with the will of God. So it really opens up much more potentials, not just in terms of energy, but
yeah,
things open up in your life. And I often tell people that the year after initiation, they can make
mm,
more progress if they're really doing the like using the tools that we
mhm,
teach. That you can make more progress on a personal development level, like personal growth level,
mhm,
than you have in 10 years prior. And
mhm.
I say this as somebody who was a total personal development junkie before. Like
Yeah,
I learned how to speed read. I read hundreds of different personal development books.
me too.
I did all sorts of seminars, and it was like I enjoyed them, and it was good. Just wasn't getting to the core of my stuff. The
Yeah,
core of my stuff was being it was me, and
yeah,
it wasn't just mental blocks, but these different imbalances in my structure, different ways of that I was holding on to negativity or pain or suffering.
Mhm.
And like one of the things that Carl Jung talks about, who's also a mystery school initiate, who's a high initiate in the mystery school, he talked about how many of our spiritual issues we actually have to transcend. It's not
Mhm.
so much that you heal them; it's you transcend and ascend to a level where you're just not there anymore. You no
Yep.
longer have influence, and it's
Yeah.
like you rise to this higher state, and that other stuff just falls away. And that was
100%.
very much my experience. And it was like instead of me playing whack-a-mole in my mind or my emotions, it was like I was going to the state where that stuff didn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and right after for me, I moved out of bad relationships, I moved out of bad business decisions, I moved out of I just phew, I was out. It was a perceived quote problem because I had to make changes, but I just very naturally just moved out of the current state that I was in and moved to another one. And I think that's it. People try to like fix everything from the mind and like
Yeah.
it just doesn't work that way. And you don't even us saying that, somebody doesn't fully know what that means until they're experiencing it
Yeah.
over and over again of how you grow out of the situation, and you move away from it and you move towards this higher spiritual light, this anchoring in of
Yeah.
the soul and the spirit and understanding of who you are. And like for me, I would have never been on a podcast talking about this shit like 8 years ago or more. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't relevant. I wanted to make money. I wanted to be like, you know, thought of in good esteem and please people, but that was it. It's like I wanted to like not be too on I wanted to fit in
Yeah.
enough. I wanted to make money. I wanted to like have the look and but
Yeah.
like that wasn't actually going to do any of it. It's like there's greater meaning. Why have any of that stuff if you
Yeah.
don't like your home, which is,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
sense.
And
Yeah,
even speaking of those things, it's like it's not like those things aren't good. Like it's good to have
totally.
money, it's good to have success, right? And it's good to
Yeah.
have good relationships and professional respect and those things, but like those aren't really desires of the soul so much. It's like
Mm-mm.
those are more we can have different spiritual contracts for things.
Sure.
It tends to be that's more of the negative ego that's making these
Yeah.
lists.
Yeah, and
And
it wasn't for any other reason besides, like, what I thought others wanted from me, right?
yeah,
Or what I felt like would actually make me happy. But the result of the internal work and the internal understanding and this
yeah,
greater aspect of the self, it made the understanding of what my contribution was gonna be like,
right.
right? As
Yeah,
as opposed
absolutely.
to, like, let me have this stuff so I can show other people,
Yeah.
right?
And for both of us, like what our contribution was going to be like, or is becoming like too, is this? It's something that we didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
It was because it just like it did not fit into the normal mold, and that was also really hard for me too. I
Yes.
was very much on a certain professional path where I probably would have been an international teacher of chiropractic. Maybe one day I will still do that, or and on the boards of colleges and that type of thing. But it
Mhm.
was this was really my path to go and explore the spirituality and the intersection between spirituality and physical healing. Like that's
Mhm.
really my jam.
Yeah.
Um, but taking a step back, one of the things that we were talking about as far as is you were talking about this like increased discernment,
Mm.
whereas as increased light comes in from initiation, you have a much greater spiritual discernment. Meaning that when this increased light comes in, which is what the initiation does, what this process does, it brings in more light through the soul and the spirit and the chakras. You are able to have much more awareness. So we
Mhm.
say 10 times more light or the potential for 10 times more light. And essentially, that's the potential for 10 times more awareness. You'll
Mhm.
have much greater clarity about the light and the dark in your own life and choices, meaning that you'll see like the wrong choice more clearly and you'll feel it and you'll see the right
Mhm.
choice more clearly. That doesn't mean the wrong choice to the mind or the right choice to the mind or what's easiest, but
Mhm.
really one that's naturally in alignment with your highest good, the good of others, the good of your spirit.
That's so good. I mean, that's kind of it. That's like, that kinda really brings up to, why would somebody wanna do this? And that's it sounds almost like why wouldn't anybody wanna do that?
Yeah,
Well, I think on a obvious level, it sounds like, "Oh, of course, who wouldn't wanna do that?" But on a much deeper level, it presents lots of challenges, We
yeah,
need on the other side of that, it's like we learn by being courageous and overcoming, and it helps us do that, because at the point that most people find initiation, there's aspects of their life that aren't working the way they hoped they would work. Some of
Yeah.
them being obvious and some not. But after, as we change those, there can be some challenge that occurs. But that challenge, in what I have found at the end of the day, has been so worth it. You
Yeah.
know, it's been so
Absolutely.
worth it. And that's where it's like, at the end of the day, I know I was looking for so much more meaning in my life,
Yeah.
and meaning in this physical world, and the meaning behind everything. I just taught a sacred geometry class, and it's like, there's that obvious understanding that's very much like, it's outside. Oh, it's a triangle. You can see it, but there's such deeper meaning behind that. And the
Yeah.
same thing is true of our life, right? There's the obvious, like, I'm doing this and I did that, and you can see this, but there's so much deeper understanding behind each and every aspect. And after initiation, that's what I was awakened to, the deeper meaning of how I fit in and how I matter, and how what I do plays a role in my own life and the life of others.
Yeah, absolutely. And to help you, like, naturally progress on it too, in a much smoother way.
Yeah.
Like, I really feel like one of the main benefits I got from initiation was this, like, spiritual compass that really just helped to outline what my true north was,
Yeah.
so that you don't end up lost in the woods so much.
Yeah.
And, like, there's different things for both of us that weren't working about the way that we were living. It was causing, spiritual or soul pain, but mentally made sense, or were desires of negative ego. And,
Yeah.
like, I remember one thing for me was I tried to, alcohol. I had an attachment to alcohol, so it was like, something for to lean on socially, and then just to help me relax at the end of a
Mhm.
long day, that type of thing. And I remember after initiation, I was trying to, like, have a drink, and I just, like, I literally didn't enjoy it. I would have, like, a
Mhm.
nice glass of scotch, and, which to me was this fancy thing, and, but I didn't enjoy it anymore. It was just, like, this
Mhm.
flat feeling, and then the next day, I just felt, like, a little bit, like, heavier, like my senses were dull. And
Mhm.
it was probably, like, a month where I was, like, trying to I was like, "Oh, this alcohol that used to make me feel relaxed, like, now it just
Mhm.
makes me feel flat."
Yeah.
Almost like before, like, I had was at this higher natural state, and then if I drank, it just kinda dropped me down.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it was like, but I fought with it for a little bit because I was trying to, I didn't understand what was happening. And
Yeah.
then eventually I was just like, "Oh, you know what? This doesn't make me feel good." And I'm really interested with how much more awareness I'm having, and my intuition, how strong it's becoming, and I wanna explore that more, but in order to do that, I feel like I have to give up the alcohol. So I
Yeah.
just made the decision one day, and that was it. And it was like that was just cleared out of my family. It felt like my mom became sober after that, shortly after. Like, different aunts who really struggle with alcohol stopped
Mhm.
struggling with alcohol. It
Mhm.
was something that was just like, it was a huge shift.
Yeah. And very similarly, like, on a very practical level, same thing. I think I, like, my drinking con how much I consume probably dropped by like 75% afterwards, not
Yeah,
even consciously. And then a year later, it was completely gone. And then by Lauren and I both kind of just, it dissolved. We didn't do it. And then it affected our families consume less alcohol across the board.
yeah,
You
yeah,
saw that was a very tangible one to actually see the aspects, because we could drive the fun and the party and the influence, and we also did it in a healthy way by just not doing it. We saw how
yeah,
that affected. And even to this day and age, we've been sober like over 6 years or whatnot.
yeah,
And that definitely influences gatherings and what other choices other people make. And you don't,
yeah,
but it's not this big conversation or big deal, just happen. And that's kind of how things happen with
yeah,
initiation. So, um, it's some of the best work that we do. I'm glad we took, time to share this episode, because it does allow us to go a little bit deeper about, you know, who might be ready for it. You and I both teach this probably what quarterly,
yeah,
in our selected areas, but we hope to bring it together, come 2025, where, if you're listening to this podcast, you're interested, we do hope to host some initiation weekends together in, like
yeah,
retreat locations, so we can help people have this experience and they can receive the gifts that we've received through initiation.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is something that's totally worth, traveling to. Uh,
Mhm.
it's like I used to travel a lot. I still travel a lot for seminars and that type of thing, but it's just one of those things that's absolutely worth getting on a plane, going and doing. Let us know. We'll do a healing session beforehand or something. We'll work with you to help you get the life activation first. And then also there's people from around the world who do this. So like say you're
Mm.
listening from Africa, or we have, it's interesting with our where we can
Yeah.
see like who listens, and there's people from all sorts of different countries who are listening, which is
Russia.
cool. Yeah. So I don't know if there are any guides in Russia right now, but there's literally spiritual guides like, I mean, 60 countries or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So the vast majority of the developed nations have spiritual guides there. So it's something that you can see on the Modern Mystery School website. If you go to modernmysteryschoolinT.com, and then you can click on like contact us or something like that, and it'll show, there'll be a tab where you can find a practitioner, and that you want to look for a certified spiritual guide.
Yeah. Or you can email us at it's hello at evolvingpracticepod.com, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So, and we'd be happy to find. So, we enjoy sharing this with you. More to come, but this is a foundational episode that we can share out to other people so they know. And if you feel like it's helpful, share it with somebody that so we can hopefully help them get the services they need.
Thank you so much for joining us. Please check that out. It's something you'll be really happy you did.